right, so back at it again, guys. Excuse me. Today I got for you guys the Cold Steel ProLite. Now, this particular knife I've been kind of moving around in my collection. I didn't know at the time if I really wanted to do a video on it, but I went ahead and decided today would be the day to do that. So let's get into it, everybody. Let's talk blades, because that's what we're into today. The Cold Steel ProLite. Now, this is a budget-friendly knife. It features a German steel of, if I can get it in there, German 4116 steel. I'm not entirely familiar with that kind of steel. I don't have any other knives in my collection that have that kind of steel, except for this. I think that's actually kind of cool. It keeps and holds a decent edge if you're not trying to beat on it or abuse it in any fashion. I think it'll hold up pretty nicely. It has for me anyways. I carried this around for, I want to say, about like close to 3 months. But I'm a light user with my knives. I don't really beat my knives to hell and back again. I just use them for what they're designed to be used for, you know. I don't pry open cans with it, and I don't go chopping down trees, or, you know, I don't do anything crazy like that. I don't cut anything metal with it. I just use it to cut open packages and mail and strings and rope and just whatever normal stuff you should use your knife on, or at least a knife in this caliber anyways. This features a molded plastic handle. I want to say it's like a Craton or a Creighton handle, but it's Cold Steel's military grade plastic, like a polymer, a really strong polymer. This knife features a tip-up carry, left or right interchangeable, which I think is really cool. You cannot do the 4-way, but that's fine. Just the tip-up, I think, in my preference. This is actually pretty decent for this knife. The thing that I don't like about this knife, it doesn't feel like Cold Steel to me. And I'm a Cold Steel fan. Well, I used to be a Cold Steel fan. It actually shifted into the Spyderco realm type of collecting on my end. I actually really do enjoy Spyderco over Cold Steel. The reason why that is because I feel that Spyderco has better quality, a little bit more attractive knives, in my opinion. Cold Steel, on the other hand, is built, if you want a rugged knife, get Cold Steel. If you want a knife that you can beat on and it's built to be beat on, get a Cold Steel. Now, I'm not saying that Spyderco isn't capable of doing that. I'm sure there's some models in Spyderco's lineup that have that same capability, but not as close. This features the Andrew Demko approved triad lock. And I say that kind of comically because he's the guy who invented the triad lock. This thing takes a lot before it fails. And having a budget knife that holds this type of lock, you can depend on it. I mean, it's pretty good. I wouldn't stab it in a tree and start climbing with it. I mean, this isn't that type of knife, but this knife can hold a pretty decent amount before it fails. And what that number is, I don't know. I haven't really tested it, but there are knives that can hold well over 150, 200 pounds on a simple triad lock. But you should go check those videos out if you want to. Just look it up on YouTube. It's not hard to find. But just type in Cold Steel triad lock and there's tons of videos on it. Really, really good stuff. Cold Steel comes out with some decent stuff. Now, recently, not so much. I don't enjoy the more recent stuff that Cold Steel comes out with. So it's kind of sad. I'll get into that later. Go ahead and get into the specs of this knife. I know you guys are waiting. I'm so sorry about that. I trail off in my speeches. I do apologize. So here we go. Get into the weight. We're looking at a 3.23 ounces. That is pretty decent. Get into the length of this knife. And here it is at 3 1/8 cutting edge with a 3 1/4 reach, and with an overall 7 3/4 inches altogether with a 4 5/8 inch handle. Get into the width. Looking at a 2.6 on the blade and a 12.2 on the handle. It's a small knife, guys. It's a small knife. At least to me anyways. It's not a huge knife. It's kind of a little bit smaller than medium in my taste. And size comparison, I'll just bust out whatever I have in my pocket right now. And that is the Benchmade Fact. This is a pretty long knife, but I very much enjoy it. So, here it is. You can see the Fact is much longer. But this is kind of, to me, a minimalist knife. At least to me, it's a minimalist type of knife. And I say that with love. With the reputation that I do remember Cold Steel having, they're not what they used to be. I haven't really been interested in too many of their recent stuff. I mean, I think the most recent purchase I had through Cold Steel was their Stormcloud. And that's an okay knife, but I didn't like how smooth the handle scales were. It slipped in and out of my pocket way too easily. I even put a little, and I put a little thumbprint-sized grip tape oval right on this section, so that way when I do go to wave it out the pocket, which you are capable of doing with that model, it can actually catch and you have better grip, because your thumb, when you go into that pocket to pull this out, your thumb goes right on that plate and it comes out, pops open. So I added that. That was my little extra added measure. But on the side where it has nothing but the pocket clip, it just slips in and out of the pocket way too easily, and I didn't like that. You know, any small thing and it would just come out of the pocket completely. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I mean, it can be a bad thing. You know, it's a pretty expensive knife. So having that, excuse me, I don't know if you guys heard that. I had lunch just now. Please forgive me. This isn't that wasn't really the type of knife that I want to carry every day because of how slick the handle scales were. Now this one, on the other hand, has a little bit of texture on there. Let me flip on the light so you guys can see that. It does have some texturing. It's light, but it does make a difference, and that can make the difference majorly on grip. Now, the shape of the handle isn't always going to be the end-all, be-all as far as grip goes. You want there to be some type of texture. Excuse me. You want there to be something so that way you have a little bit more than just the shape of the handle that's aiding to your grip. You want to be able to have something that is less slick. So, for a budget knife, this is great. You get a full hand on there, at least my hands anyways. They're about medium size. They're not huge, they're not small. You got a little bit of jimping up here. It's okay. And then you got the recessed kind of finger choil, the double finger choil down here, so it does add for a pretty relatively comfortable grip. Now that's a Tanto tip. There's a clip point that is on Amazon right now, and I think the price on these goes for around about like $25-30. Not bad. Not freaking bad at all, especially when you got the triad lock for that price. That's actually pretty damn good. Not the knife for me, though. Like I said, I've been shifting this around in my collection, trying to avoid doing a knife review on it because it was one of my least favorite knives. And you gotta want to review something you like, you know what I mean? And this is part of my collection, and I do enjoy any and every blade I get. But if there are more if there are more cons than pros, then you know that it's a knife that you least like. You know, you still like it, you still appreciate it. Don't get me wrong, which it's one of the ones that you don't really care too much for. Lanyard hole. See that little guy? I think that's decent. But I can't wait for the day that they do away with lanyard holes altogether. I'm not a huge fan of lanyard holes. I never use lanyard holes. I think I've used lanyard hole once, and that was because the pocket clip broke off of this particular knife. So I had to tie a lanyard in there and drop it in the pocket, have the lanyard with some sort of weight at the end of it sticking out of my pocket so it's easier to access instead of fishing around for it in my back pocket or in my front pocket or whatever, just to get to this particular knife. And the only time I think I ever use a lanyard is if I'm carrying one of my Swiss Army knives, and I throw a lanyard on it because that one doesn't really have a pocket clip. Now they do have pocket clips for those knives, and that's a whole other thing I'll get into later on. But I don't see the use in lanyard holes in knives nowadays. I don't particularly. So this particular knife, not a bad model, just not one that I really care for too much. If you guys are looking for a cold steel but not wanting to pay the cold steel price, this is actually a pretty decent buy. So check it up on Amazon. Like I said, it's not much, and it's a good beater knife, at least in my opinion. Blade steel is controversial. It just depends on the user. So, keep those things in mind. So, anyways, be kind, be safe, carry responsibly. These are some weird times we're living in. So, I implore everybody, please be safe, please be kind and respectful to each other. We are a nation that's a little bit divided right now, but we are also still Americans. And we should care for one another. We really should. So, slash that like button, stab that subscribe. I will see you guys in the next video, hopefully.